Hi everyone, welcome to the first ever edition of the 90 plus 4, well, not 90 plus 4, 90 plus 14 podcast. This is basically me repurposing a pilot show that I used to do a few years ago, whereby I reviewed the game week in 4 minutes. And then I realized actually that's not enough time to review an entire game week. And then thankfully, I took inspiration from the extended injury time that took place during the World Cup. And lo and behold, it now has come to the Premier League. So I thought, why not rework it to the 90 plus 14 podcast, do it unedited, do it unfiltered, and then post it out straight after the game week has ended. So I'll literally talk you through the points that I've scored, also some potential changes I may make for the next game week, and also reviewing how the teams did as well. And in this edition, I'll also do a quick prediction on Fabio Borges's game week 2 predicted transfer. So first of all, let's get straight into this show with what I've done for this game week, and I'll cap it at 14 minutes as per the show name. So I scored 74 points. With hindsight, it was well above the average. Goalkeeper Edison delivered with 6 points, so no complaints there, albeit I paid a premium price to get that clean sheet. There were plenty of other 4.5 or 5.0 options I could have considered, but clean sheets nonetheless, 6 points there. Defense, fairly disappointing to be honest with you, when there's a plethora of options at hand. Of course, Estupinan got that last gasp assist and got me 7 points. And if there was one learning that I've got already this season, it's that you must listen to the experts streams, the ones who have the mega following on YouTube, because they seem to have this like magical information that comes to them late on. And I didn't tune into that stream, and I didn't act upon the Gabriel information. So I got 1 point for Gabriel instead of 5 points for Saliba. Basically feels like a -4 if I'm being perfectly honest, but it is what it is. I've got to roll with it. I probably won't sell Gabriel, and I'll explain why. Sure, 5 points. To be honest with you, Wolves should have had a penalty right at the end. So if I was losing 4 points for Gabriel, I've gained 4 points from Shaw. So it's all balanced up there. Coming on to my midfield, I took a punt on De Bruyne because with Mohamed Salah, I just couldn't balance the team the way in which I wanted. I saw that De Bruyne was starting, so I did act upon that late news. And then, unfortunately for me, De Bruyne got injured in the first half, and yeah, just a 1 point performance altogether there. And you know, at 10.5 million, you don't want your players scoring 1 point. And obviously, he's now flagged, and I have to consider selling him for the game week ahead. And then Saka, safe as houses, great opening fixture, and then 10 points for him. No complaints there. Very disappointing with Bruno Fernandes and Rashford. Of course, some were put off with the role in which Fernandes would play in with this new United lineup. And technically, he assisted the assist of United's winner on Monday night. But at the same time, he wasn't actually looking that amazing either. So I'm just wondering how long I'll keep him in my own team. And then, of course, Marcus Rashford, 3 points. Again, didn't really see much that he was doing in the Wolves match. Not going to sell him anytime soon. But with that said, it's also another one to monitor. I'd have to see that, are there any other players in his price range in the game weeks ahead that are offering more value? And then coming on to the attack, of course, Haaland, captain, 26 points. But then again, we all own him, and pretty much everyone captained him. So there was really nothing unexpected there. And then João Pedro with his 7 points. Again, 5.5 million. X-Mins were somewhat of a concern, but I'm glad I went triple Brighton for that opening fixture against Luton, and it paid off because he got a fancy return, and it was worth it ultimately. And then coming on to the bench, I had Turner, 2 points. Again, he could have been a potential starter for me if I went for Turner and Areola, but I was concerned on whether both would get minutes. And then in the end, they both did get minutes, and then but both didn't keep a clean sheet. Baldock got 2 points, Kabore just got the 1, and Mubama didn't even feature. So I wanted a light bench, lost 5 points on the bench. I can deal with that. Not an issue whatsoever. But this really brings me on to, well, before I go on to the next game week, a quick review on how I feel the teams did as well. So City against Burnley, yeah, pass score 3-0. Yeah, Burnley were playing the way in which you'd expect them to play under Company. And again, you could argue this was the hardest home fixture that they're going to get this season. And perhaps they'll get better positive scorelines in the weeks ahead. So, yeah, we can't just judge them solely by this one fixture alone. Coming on to Arsenal and Nottingham Forest, again, with Arsenal at home, surprisingly narrow scoreline. Forest could have even scored 2 goals, at least in this fixture. And with Raya coming to Arsenal, it'll be interesting to see if he can challenge Ramsdale for the #1 spot at some point this season as well in the Premier League. And then Bournemouth against West Ham, they just cancelled each other out ultimately. Of course, Gerard Bowen and Solanke both got onto this score sheet there as well. And with West Ham, they've got some interesting new signings that will be joining them as well. So remains to be seen how they'll do. And with Bournemouth, if it's a case of same as they did last season and they've got enough in the tank, then fair play to them. On to Brighton against Luton. Again, you're expecting some goals with this Brighton team. Luton did as much as they could in the end, and they even got a goal through the penalty that they scored. But then you really do wonder with this Luton team that how many times is it when they go on the road that they're going to lose by a heavy scoreline? It didn't really look promising at all. Ross Barkley, when he does start eventually, it'll be interesting to see how he does in that Luton lineup. But Luton are just lacking in Premier League experienced players. So I do really worry for them in the games ahead as well. And then Everton against Fulham. Of course, Mitrovic didn't start, but that didn't matter. You had Decorova Reed scoring for them. Again, a fair few went for Pickford as the goalkeeper. But yeah, I mean, 1-0, bit disappointing. You'd expect, of course, it would have been difficult for Everton to score with the issues they have with attack, but it wasn't meant to be for a clean sheet. And then Palace against Sheffield United. After Sheffield United sold Ndiaye, you really wondered where the goals were going to come from. And yeah, there was really nothing there for United. Didn't score against Palace at home. And then Palace, of course, got a goal from Edouard and got a win. Newcastle and Aston Villa result completely surprised me, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Again, with my fan hat on, I wanted us to win, but then I thought they'd just cancel each other out, and we were absolutely amazing. And a lot of managers, including myself, had this reluctance of all these red block fixtures that Newcastle United have in the opening game week. So we avoided a lot of their players. And of course, Isak was the first player to get a price rise this season after his brace. And yeah, some surprising goal scorers as well for us. And then Wilson came off the bench and scored, as did Barnes. And Diaby scored for Aston Villa as well. Trippier had like an ownership of 30% plus still, and no clean sheet for him. But yeah, let's just see how Newcastle can maintain this momentum as well with the trickier fixtures beyond. And I've got no doubt Aston Villa will bounce back from that heavy defeat, but they don't exactly have a great record at St James's Park of late either. Brentford against Spurs, a very interesting match. We saw like Ange ball, if I want to call it that, come to the fore in the Premier League. This match really could have finished with almost any scoreline you could just predict. And ultimately, a draw seemed relatively fair. Mbeumo and Maddison owners were an absolute dreamland. Mbeumo probably could have scored a goal or two more. But yeah, I kind of regret not owning Mbeumo now. And I had Maddison in one of my penultimate drafts as well, but I sold him ultimately when Kane moved to Bayern Munich. But I've got no doubt I'll revisit that in this attacking Spurs lineup. And then onto the final final match for the Sunday, Chelsea against Liverpool, 1-1. Fair scoreline. Surprised to see Mohamed Salah getting subbed off early. The one player who I definitely don't have in my team, who I really wanted after Sunday's match, was Ben Chilwell. So again, I've got the famous Maldini quote of, if you've made a transfer in game week 2, you've made a mistake. I might have to do a -4 to get him in ultimately. So I'll have a think about that one. And then lastly, United against Wolves. So disappointing. Perhaps it was a new manager bounce for Wolves, or United having first game jitters. 1-0. This could have easily have been a Wolves win. And I saw a really interesting stat that Wolves had. Again, I'm not going to, I don't want to like misread the stat. I'll just literally read it verbatim. A very remarkable stat in terms of the amount of shots that Wolves had on goal. So again, I probably should have checked this a lot sooner, but the stat basically said that in terms of shots on goal, I think that was like the most number of shots on goal by a visiting team in the Premier League for like 20 years. Here we go. So Opta Analyst, Wolves' tally of 23 shots tonight was the second most in a Premier League away game at Old Trafford in recorded history since 2003-04. So that either says a lot about Wolves or it says a lot about Manchester United. But for me, it's a really cause for concern, and they should have had a penalty at the end, Wolves. That was a blatant foul from Onana. So I've got no doubt there'll be a lot of discussion about that in the weeks ahead. And in terms of my own team for game week 2, I wish I could say no transfer. I'm looking at Shaw, big question mark there. De Bruyne, massive, like not question mark. I really have to take action there before his price potentially falls. But I think his ownership is low enough that I could get away with not selling him if I absolutely wanted to. But if I was to potentially make a move, I'd want to sell De Bruyne and Shaw. I might go for De Bruyne first, but it will be just need to give it some more thought. And I might even make a transfer tonight, potentially as well. So, yeah, I just need to make sure that I think it through carefully. And lastly, for those that were following my videos in pre-season, I tried to predict, I tried to predict the entire squad that Fabio Borges, the all-time greatest FPL manager, his squad for game week 1. And in terms of my predictions, I roughly got 10 out of 15 of his squad absolutely right. And I think I got about 70% of my specific predictions correct as well. So I was fairly pleased with that. Fabio scored 65 points this game week, Flecken in goal, got a double up with Arsenal defence. And then he had like a template midfield, but he's got a missing player here. And then Jackson and Haaland up top. My prediction is this, that I'm predicting that Fabio Borges will buy Saka for game week 2 and he'll sell Fernandes. It's very clear that's a missing piece in his jigsaw and he'll absolutely have to make that move. It makes total sense. So that's my prediction. And if I'm absolutely spot on with that prediction, I might do further predictions about Fabio Borges' teams in the weeks ahead. But I'm absolutely certain, just looking at the players that he has here, that Saka in, Fernandes out. And especially after the way Fernandes played tonight as well, it kind of feels like the go-to move. I'll be very shocked if he didn't make any transfers. He definitely needs an attacking Arsenal asset, be it Odegaard, be it Saka, be it Martinelli, but surely it has to be Fernandes out. That's what I'm predicting anyway. Apart from that, that is my first ever 90 plus 14 lessons learned and review for game week 1. And I'll hopefully be doing more of these throughout the season. And like I've said, I was lucky to act upon the team leaks for Man City. And ironically, I probably would have scored more points by not acting upon those leaks because I had Varane in my almost final team, but then I decided to chop and change to have a more balanced team and also get De Bruyne in. But it is what it is. 74 points in total. I've got no complaints. Just need to have a think on what I'm going to do in the game week ahead. So there we have it. I've gone well over my 14-minute allocation. My apologies. I won't do it next time. Take care and all the best. Thank you. Bye.